Now, most of all, you know about mitochondria. It is considered to be a powerhouse of the cell, very important organelle. And if we look into little bit history of the mitochondria here, now the mitochondria, let me check my color code. So it was, as you say, powerhouse of the cell. It was discovered by Albert Kolliker, that is in 1857, and then the term was given by Altman, but it was renamed by Carl Benda. Okay, so the Carl Benda, she basically renamed the mitochondria or mitochondrion. Okay, so that's how it is there. Now this is a picture, as you can see here. This is a mitochondrial DNA. Okay, there is a double membrane, there is a outer membrane and the inner membrane. There are ribosomes which is present over there, and this is the ATP synthesis which is there. There are several porins which is present in the mitochondria. One interesting thing about mitochondria is that several of the proteins which is present in the mitochondria that are governed by the nuclear genes, and you will be surprised to know this, that several diseases which is associated with the mitochondria, they are not directly related with the mitochondrial DNA. Okay, like we all know that mitochondria has got its DNA. So these are a rod shaped structures, 2 to 8 micrometer. Now they play a very important role, as we know, that is in cellular metabolism in terms of ATP synthesis. Okay, the apoptosis, which is dependent upon mitochondrial, so they do play a very important role. They also play a very important role in cell signaling. This is a video link where I described about the cytoplasmic inheritance, but specifically about the chloroplast inheritance, because this mitochondrial inheritance or the cytoplasmic inheritance in terms of chloroplast inheritance is also taught in genetic classes. Now we know it has got its own DNA, which is roughly 16.5 kb, and if you compare with human, which is roughly 3000 mega base pair, okay, or 3 billion bases, so you can imagine how small this is in kb and this is in mega base pair. So it is there. Now it is quite a bit interesting, as I was mentioning, because the mitochondria is involved in several cellular processes. Okay, and several diseases are associated with mitochondrial DNA mutations. One more thing, that this mitochondrial DNA mutations, if it is there, then it will be transferred to the next generation as well. Okay, because each of the daughter cells, they are receiving the cytoplasm, including the mitochondria, from their maternal side. Whether there is involvement of paternal mitochondria there or not, it is another point of discussion. Just a minute. Yeah. So that's why mitochondria becomes very important, and that's why a cellular biologist wants to know that what kind of diseases which is related with the dysfunction of the mitochondria per se, and as well as whether there are certain mutations or the diseases which is caused by the mitochondrial DNA itself. Like in this particular case, this is shown, I will come back to this slide. So this particular diagram, as you can see here, it has shown there are central roles of chaperones in mitochondrial protein homeostasis. Means there are the proteins which is present in the mitochondria, they has to be properly folded. Okay, so like for example, it is shown here, there are chaperones. This is mitochondrial UPRE basically stands for unfolded protein response. Unfolded protein response is a cell signaling cascade, involves several of proteins which is involved. Now whenever this is there, there is a mitochondrial function is properly working, okay, and then if there is any kind of dysfunctioning, means there is some kinds of aberrant protein expression or certain proteins are not folded properly, then this UPRE pathway is kind of activated and they basically restored your homeostasis. Okay, like for example, it's shown in this particular diagram. Let me change the color code here. See, in this particular diagram, see, if there is a misfolded or protein, there has to be degraded, but sometimes this degradation is a problem, or this has to be refolded. But if this process somehow is not working properly, means if it is not going to degradation pathways, or it is not properly been folded by the chaperones, maybe the load is too much, then it leads to this aggregation or accumulation of the misfolded protein inside the mitochondria. By the way, this pathway also occurs in cytoplasm and the endoplasmic reticulum as well, and mostly like endoplasmic reticulum, but since we are talking about the mitochondria, so that's why I'm focusing here only in the mitochondrial part. So if you see there is any kind of failure which is occurring, then it might relates to certain neurodegenerative diseases. So that's why you want to isolate the protein from the mitochondria and see everything is perfectly all right, work is there, this system, this organ is working there or not. So that's why one is interested in mitochondria. This is a more just a summarized diagram which is showing that if there is a mutation in the mitochondrial DNA, that is the protein, the previous one, this is about the mutation in the mitochondrial DNA, which could be arise for several reasons, okay, like the reactive oxygen species, or there is a cell division problems which has been there. Now it affects like the neurons, or it can cause the neurodegenerative diseases. There are corrective measures also, okay. I'm not going into detail about those corrective measures, but what you can see in this here, that there are certain modifications, like you can replace the mitochondria. In fact, in higher studies, people talk about replacing this mitochondrial defect by taking a healthy egg, okay, and then that's how a 3-parent children comes into concept, like the healthy mitochondria can be there, because sometimes these defects cannot be corrected by use of the gene replacement, okay. So that's why someone should be interested in isolating a mitochondria. There are several diseases which is associated with mitochondria. One which I showed in the previous 2 slides, those are related with the neurodegenerative diseases, but there are several diseases, like for example, it can affect the optic nerve, it can affect the spinal cord, it can affect, in fact the kidneys are also been affected with the mitochondrial proteins, aberrant expression of the proteins, the loss of the muscles associated with your immune response, so many other processes they are involved, so much vital. I've also shared a link here, the online Mendelian inheritance pattern in man. You can check and see what type of chromosomal mutations which can affect the mitochondrial function. So there are 2 aspects. One is the chromosomal, means that is a nuclear mutations, and that nuclear mutations can affect the mitochondria. And the second one is that there are certain mutations in the mitochondrial DNA itself, means the effects in the mitochondria, and that affects your cellular system. That's why people gets interested in the mitochondria. The next part of this video I will be talking about the protocol. So with this I will stop here.